What's going on, guys? So behind me you can see another Grand Cherokee. We work on these things a lot. Well, this one happens to be my other Grand Cherokee. This is a 2001 limited edition 25th year anniversary with the big 4.7 V8 in it. Now, I wasn't going to film much of this, but I figured I would because it's kind of interesting. So basically what we got going on with this one is the other day went out to start it, cranked it over, it rolled over slow, it backfired through the intake, and it literally blew the entire back of the intake manifold off. So the issue with this vehicle is that for the last 6 months or so, it's been having occasional extended crank starts. And then when it finally does start, it shoots a giant cloud of black smoke out the ass end of it, and it will run fine after that. Now, the problem with it is you cannot recreate this problem. For some reason or another, every time you go to try to fix it, I pick it up, I drive it, it's fine. There's nothing wrong with it, no extended crank, no black smoke, no nothing. It runs absolutely perfectly. So, unfortunately, up until this point, I haven't been able to figure out what's causing the problem. Now, I suspected that it was a leaky injector. So basically what would happen is you shut the vehicle off, the existing fuel pressure that's left in the lines would bleed out through one of the injectors, fill one of the cylinders with a little bit of fuel, then when you go to start it, you have an extreme rich condition, and then it would fire up eventually, run a little rough, and it would throw all the excess fuel out the exhaust in the form of black smoke. So unfortunately, I had planned on pulling the injectors and throwing them in the injector machine and seeing if they were leaky, but I didn't get that far. We ended up blowing the backside of the intake off. So today what we're going to do, pretty much I already know what's going on, but for poop and laughter, we're going to throw the injectors in the injector machine and see if we can't figure out if they're leaking, which ones are leaking, which cylinders were leaking, and go from there. We're trying to find an intake for it now. I'll hopefully have one tomorrow, so I can put that back in. So I'm going to re-O-ring everything in my injector machine because all the O-rings are shot. And then I'll put the injectors in. I'll bring you guys back. I'll show you what happened to the intake manifold. And then I'll also show you the process of cleaning the injectors and flow testing them and checking them for leaks. So here we go. Alright guys, so I'm going to show you the manifold. That's not supposed to happen. That shouldn't be a giant hole that you can see clear through. So it blew this entire back cover right off of it. So now what we're going to do is I got the injector machine all set up, and basically these are the 4 injectors from the passenger side, and what we're going to be checking for is we're actually going to do a leakage test. We're going to do a uniformity and sprayability test, and then we're also going to flow test these things to see if they're working like they should. Now what I suspect is that on some of these injectors, whether it be the 4 driver side or the 4 passenger side, when we do the leakage test, it'll put these under pressure, and while they're under pressure, it's going to see if they leak, if they drip while they're closed. Now, we're going to run this right now and see what these injectors look like. So we'll kick it up to the leakage test, hit the start button, and it's going to ramp up to about 60 pounds of fuel pressure. We're going to overpressure them a little bit, and we're going to watch and see if we see any kind of dripping. So thus far, we don't see anything from the passenger side injectors, which is a good sign. Now, if we don't see anything from these injectors, period, whether it be the driver's side or passenger side, then we're going to have to start looking into other issues with this situation. Whether the fuel pressure is bleeding back to the tank through the pump check valve, or whether we've got some ECU issues that are throwing timing off. I mean, there's so many different things that this could be, but this is a pretty common issue with these things, so I want to test it out. Alright, so now we're going to switch it over to a uniformity and sprayability test, and this will just kind of give me an idea of what these injector spray patterns look like. So here we go. And I know you guys can't see that on camera because these are actually pretty small injectors, they're factory injectors. But what we're looking for is an atomization pattern and not just a straight spray. So these actually look pretty good. They're not spraying a steady stream. They're actually doing a nice atomization, so these look like they're pretty good. We're going to run it through an auto test real quick, and then we'll come back. We'll throw the passenger side injector, or the driver side injectors. We'll throw the driver side injectors in and see what happens with those. So being that the passenger side one's checked out to be totally fine, we got the driver's side 4 loaded up in the machine now, and we're going to run the same exact test that we did on the passenger side. Start with a leakage test, and then we'll go through and we'll do all the other tests. So here we go with the leakage. And so far, nothing. So we're going to run these in the test like we did before. We'll warm them up a little bit and we'll see if we can get them to leak. Driver's side injectors, I want to kind of show you guys something here when I was talking about spray pattern. So we're just doing an injector flow test on this one because I wanted to see what the patterns look like. And you can kind of see something that's a little off. That third injector right here is spraying sideways, which is not good at all. So we're going to have to clean these for sure. Alright guys, so what I suspected, this injector that's spraying badly, if you watch closely, see that drip? That drip right there, and we'll run this again, so maybe we'll catch another one, but that drip right there is what's leaking down into the cylinder over time. And that little drop is enough to fill the intake manifold up. And when it fills the intake manifold up with fuel, it vaporizes, and God forbid you get a small backfire, and that's exactly what happens. So we can watch it again, and it's probably just about to drip again. There it goes. So, I don't know if you guys will be able to see this because of the light, but if you look at the bottom of the injector, and I wish I could get that light out of there. Alright, you can see the very top of the bottom of the injector right there. See how clean that one is? That one's got a little drip on it. That one's clean. That's the one that's leaking, so you can see the droplet forming. And then that one is also a clean one. So what we're going to do now is we're going to throw these in the ultrasonic cleaner, which is right here. And this literally just has a degreasing solution and a few other odds and ends inside it. We're going to get them set up in there, and I'll show you guys how that process is done. So we got the ultrasonic filled. Use a little bit of solution like Simple Green or something that's really light. You don't want to use anything that's got real heavy chemical in it, like Purple Power or any kind of acidy or ammonia related materials, because that can actually damage some of the pieces inside the injector. So basically what we're going to do now is we're going to ultrasonic clean this, and you guys can hear this. It's identical to what would be like a jewelry cleaner or a small ultrasonic machine or what have you, and you can see even with just running it that little bit the amount of crap that's coming out of the injector. So what we do in conjunction with the ultrasonic is this machine has an option for ultrasonic cleaning right there. Now what that'll do is that is actually going to open and close these injectors at varying rates during the ultrasonic cleaning process, so that the ultrasonic waves and the cleaner and everything else can get up inside the injector and actually clean the injector. Now, some of you guys have done this before, like, oh my god, don't submerge those things so far, but you know what, we're probably going to end up replacing these anyway. This is just kind of for proof of concept. I want to get these in here, clean them, see if we can get them to function normal, and then we'll go from there. So let's get this started. I wanted to spare you guys the noise of the ultrasonic because this thing is just ridiculous, and the microphone on the camera picks this up like terribly, but you can see the condition of the water now versus when we first started. It is absolutely filthy, and a good portion of that is from the exterior body of the injector, but there's also a good portion of it that is directly from the injector. So now what we're going to do is take these out, dry them off, and we'll put them back in the machine over here, and we will test to see if we still have that leak. If we still have that leak, then we're going to need to replace those injectors. Back in the machine now, and if you guys remember, it was injector number 1 and injector number 3 that had the little droplets coming out of them when we were under pressure. So, and injector number 3 had the goofy spray pattern where it was spraying to the side. So what we're going to do now is we'll run another flow test on them to see if that pattern looks any better. If we hook up the deal first. It does help occasionally if you actually hook the supply hose up. So let's try this again. See if that pattern looks any different. Alright, so now we've got one that's totally screwy. We still have that side spray pattern on number 3. Number 1 looks a little funky. So, now, see what happens here. Alright guys, so it's looking like, see if I can zoom that in again. It's looking like we still have an issue with that number 3 injector leaking. And you'll see it drip in a second. It's not as bad as it was, but it is definitely still there. So we're going to have to replace that injector. Now I did manage to get the number 2 injector to start flowing normally again. Just must have had a piece of dirt in it or something. So that's flowing normal. We're going to run it through an auto test, and then I know I need to replace at least 1 injector. Alright guys, so you could probably hear the other 4 injectors. I just threw those in the ultrasonic and rechecked them for leakage, and they're fine. Now, if you remember the last video that I posted about the injector machine and why it's important to clean injectors in a modified vehicle situation, I'll link that video here in case you didn't see it, or somewhere. But anyway, we went over the fact of why it is important to clean your injectors in a turboed car or a nitrous car or something of that nature, because if God forbid one of those injectors locks up and doesn't flow, then you end up with a lean condition and boom, things go south real quick. Now, what you're seeing on this particular test is that even an injector in a stock application, when it is malfunctioning, it can cause a lot of problems. Now, you can get things like if it was leaking bad enough, you could potentially hydrolock a cylinder, bend a rod, break a piston ringland, wash down a cylinder. There's several different things. You could have what happened here where a little bit of gas pooled in the intake, the truck fired up and ultimately blew the back of the intake off. This tends to happen a lot, especially in higher mileage vehicles like this one. I think this one's got about 170,000 on it now. And ultimately, a bad injector can cause all sorts of problems. In a factory application, if this injector had locked up and not flowed anything, all it would have caused was a misfire. Had it been in a turbo vehicle and that injector locked up, you would have had catastrophic failure of that cylinder. In this application, it was leaking. And again, I could say it over and over again, but it leaked, it filled up the intake, cranked over, backfired through the intake, blew the damn intake apart. And it sounds like there's ice coming through the ceiling at this point in time. I don't know if you guys know, but in the Northeast here, we just had a wicked ice storm. But yeah, so that goes to show you the importance of fuel injectors and the problems that they can cause when they're not working properly. So as much as we tried to resurrect that one leaky injector, I think we're going to have to replace it. So what I'm going to do is tomorrow morning, first thing, I'm going to find an intake manifold for this. We'll get a brand new injector for it. Most of them, they sell them aftermarket because they were such a common failure item. And we'll throw the new injector in it. We'll throw everything back together. And then we'll start doing some more testing on it, which I'll probably bring you guys along for. We're going to do some after-the-fact fuel pressure tests. We're going to do some after-the-fact starting tests. I think we have a bad alternator too, so we're going to have to replace that. We've got a whole bunch of stuff going on with this truck. So I'll bring you guys back when we've got all of that stuff done. But for today, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you learned a little bit of something from it. And also, too, I wanted to remind you guys, everybody's always asking me if I clean injectors, if I can be hired to clean injectors. And the answer is yes. The cost for this is $100 for 4 injectors, $125 for 6, and $150 for 8. So if you and your buddies have a bunch of injectors, you want to save a little bit of money, box them all up in one big box and send them out to me. I'll get them out to you probably same day. So you ship them out, I receive them, I clean them, flow test them, make sure everything is good, put them back in the box, send them back out to you. So that's a service that I do offer. You guys can contact me either via the email that's on YouTube or through Instagram, or give the shop a call. The number is also in there. But hope you guys enjoyed this video. I'll see you all in the next one, which will be us finishing this thing up, so probably tomorrow or Tuesday. And yeah, have a good night, everybody.